Morning, everybody. Good to see everybody. Thank you for coming.
Good morning, Carol. Morning, Adrian.
Hi, Tammy. All right. So we want to say hi to our YouTube audience and thank you for joining us in the Sacred Energy of Circle this morning. And today you're going to be able to watch our evidential mediums as they connect with people who have crossed over to the other side and deliver messages from them. We're going to talk a little bit about mediumship and how it works. Okay. And we hope that by watching our mediums at work, you'll come to understand that the loved ones that you may have lost are in fact still with you. So please join me as we open with a prayer. Holy Father, Mother God, thank you for allowing us to come together today in service of spirit. Please help us to open all of our senses, physical and spiritual, so that we can receive your messages without interference from our own minds. We humbly ask that you make this circle an uplifting and joyous experience for everyone in attendance. Please ask the spirits who recognize the voices in this room to join us this morning so that we will know that they watch over us, love us, and protect us still. And please allow us to deliver the information presented by Spirit with grace and compassion, in complete trust and respect of your infinite wisdom. Amen. Okay, and so since we've only got 3 people today, do you guys want to do one long reading or 2 short ones? What are you thinking? What are we feeling?
Well, it's always hard to say, whether you mean too short, like go 2 separate times going around, or just do 2 together back to back, or
Separate times around.
um, well, we could see how it flows today. You
Okay.
know, go around, and then if somebody else pops in, we could say, "Oh, we got another round. We got somebody else here."
Okay. All right. So let's start with that. Okay. How about if we go strive for 10 minutes each?
Okay.
Okay. And whenever anybody gets a link, just go ahead, pop in there, and we'll go ahead, set the timer up.
I can start us
Thank you,
because I
Adrian.
haven't.
Go ahead.
They're eager today. I've got
Thanks,
somebody.
Yeah,
Adrian.
yeah. Oh, do you, Tammy? Do you want to go first then? No.
No, go ahead. I'm sure he'll wait. He's very
Okay.
active.
Oh, funny. Yeah, because I have a lady popping in right away, and I'm like, oh, all right. So she does feel very motherly to me, possibly grandmother, but kind of want to stick more with mother at the moment. Um, she shows me a few different things because I feel like I'm seeing her in later years, but not initially. I'm not seeing her like kind of toward the end. I want to say this is maybe just later years, but still very active. Um, and I do see her like getting in and out of her fridge. Like I see her, doing stuff in the kitchen. However, I do also see where I feel like this would be closer to, like the end of her life. And I feel like I'm seeing her a little more like bedbound or something. And there's something about um like a lift or like a bar kind of thing that would be like above the bed that would maybe, people would put their hands on to help them to like lift themselves or move around or something. Um, so let me just ask if either of the two of you could understand any of this so far. If not, I'll keep going.
I understand everything except the lift.
Except the lift. Okay, if not the lift, would you understand like I feel like needing assistance getting up and moving, and that's the feeling I'm getting with that. Like it would be something, you know,
Yeah,
and maybe it's not a. I'm sorry.
that would make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just wondering why I'm seeing that, but okay, maybe it is just like the helping movement. Um. Also, okay. So she's making me aware of that, but I feel like she doesn't want to stay there because I feel like I'm going back in time again to where, yeah, she's older, but still very mobile and doing stuff for herself. And she's taking me back to this kitchen. And I feel like there's like a sliding glass door. Would you recognize a sliding glass door in it? Or like a bigger window? Like I feel like,
I'm listening, Adrian, and I
oh,
Yeah.
understand.
And I
and
don't.
I do. Very
do you-
big. Yeah. Big window. Yeah.
Ah, do you understand the lift and everything too, or like the needing of
I don't,
assistance?
but there was talk about getting something like that, but it was never
Ah,
done. It was never done.
okay, okay.
You know, it's as a tool, but it was never done.
Would you understand an L name like Lillian, or and it may not be Lillian, but I want to say like I feel like it would be something old fashioned like that. Like,
I want to say I can understand a strong L sound.
okay, okay, thank you. And she just keeps showing me, she keeps going back to this kitchen. So I feel like, I don't know, like I'm seeing it where it's, like it's naturally lit. Like I feel like the main focus I'm seeing is like this window or the door. And like if the lights aren't turned on, like other parts of it would be kind of more dim, except for by this window or door. Like I don't know. I feel like that.
That's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And I also want to say that there's something about like tile on the floor. Like I feel like
True. Yep.
okay. But would you also understand the reference to like the ocean? Because I feel like
Oh,
I want to talk.
yes, I would.
Okay. Would you understand being able to even possibly see it from this door or this window?
I would. Yeah.
Okay. Because I feel like when I'm looking outside, I'm like, wait, there's like the beach. It's like Carol's background, actually. Just the ocean and the beach and stuff. Um, Puerto Vallarta. Would you understand Puerto Vallarta?
Yes.
Ah, okay. Thank you. Um, ooh, let me see what else she has. I'm getting so much in the heart area, the heart chakra. So I know like there's a lot of love, but I'm also kind of getting a bit of a heaviness here. Um, and the feeling I'm getting when I'm like kind of, feeling into that a little bit more. Would you understand like things left unsaid or like
Yes.
things that make okay, okay. Thank you. Because I feel like that's kind of what, she's coming in today is like to acknowledge that like there are things left unsaid, that maybe should have been, that type of thing. But also, I want to say, like, she's kind of showing me, like, there's a certain point where like, my hands even are starting to feel numb, my arms feel numb. I almost feel as if, like, the function of the body at a certain point, it's just hard to get things to work. Like, her brain is telling it one thing, but her body is not listening. Like, that's kind of the feeling I'm getting. Like, she knows what she wants to say and do, but, like, it's not cooperating how she needs it to. So would you understand that, like, where she's not able to get like the function and use correctly, like in her arms and
I
like her
absolutely do.
body?
I absolutely understand that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Would you also understand something like dementia or Alzheimer's, where maybe there's like an in and out? Like I
I,
feel like, yeah, okay,
yeah, I
um,
do understand it. Yeah.
okay. Ooh. And that's kind of the other thing that she wants to acknowledge is, um, with that kind of back and forth, it made it a little more difficult too to always, be able to speak on the things she wanted to speak on, because I almost also get this feeling of like a state of confusion. So, like, if you're in this dimension, so to speak, um, like it's being here, but then there's also like this confusion. It's like, oh, I know what I wanted to say, but then like it's almost like hard to remember or hard to like, wait, what was I gonna say? Like it's kind of like that where you can't quite get it
Interesting.
out.
Interesting.
Um, would that make sense to you?
Yeah, and I'm finding it fascinating because you're kind of explaining what she was going through. Like I saw
Ah,
from one side, and you're explaining from her side, and it's fascinating.
okay, okay, thank you. Oof, I keep getting, especially in the arms and the hands, where it just feels like almost like a numbness or like a tingling. you know, when your foot starts to fall asleep or like your foot has fallen asleep and like you stand up real quick and you're like, oh, I can't move my leg. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. Like that's kind of the feeling I'm getting like in my arms. Um, but it feels like that feeling doesn't quite go, you know, like it's still lingering. Um, do you understand something with chocolate? And I almost want to say like Mexican hot chocolate or Mexican chocolate because I feel like there's like a cinnamon note to it. Like she's showing me a mug and I want to say it's like hot chocolate or something with chocolate. Would you understand the reference to that?
Um, you know, they were buying her like one of those Starbucks drinks that was chocolatey, a frappuccino or something.
Okay. Okay.
But it was in Mexico. So
Ah,
I can see
okay.
how that's happening.
All right. Because I keep
Yeah,
seeing, you know, like the clay mugs that are kind of like the red looking or like the I keep seeing those and I'm like,
that's why she's trying to show you that it's there. It was
okay.
there, but it wasn't, you know, it was, yeah.
Would you also understand the reference to a stuffed animal? And I want to say like a teddy bear, but I want to say like there's stripes on it, like the material would be like striped. And I almost feel like, you know, some people might use like shirts or like um different cloth, you know, from like a person to make it into like to kind of keep like a piece of them type of thing. Like
Oh.
that's kind of the feeling I'm getting with this like because I feel like it's like a striped shirt or something striped on this stuffed animal. So, would you recognize an animal, like a stuffed animal like this, or like maybe something where you would be using some of her clothes or something to make it into like a keepsake?
I understand that for somebody else.
Ah, okay. Because she's referencing this. Um, okay. And I see my time, so let me just kind of.
She would know that person.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you. Let me just kind of lean in for a message here. And I'm asking her what she'd like to say. And the first thing I see in like bold letters, in like big letters, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Huge. Um, and I feel like it's not, yes, it is, you know, with taking care of her and that all of that, but I feel like it's bigger than that because I feel like it's like an overall, you know, like being a part of her life and her being a part of your life. And there's so much thankfulness there. Um, and a bit of regret because I feel like she's kind of saying like there could have been more effort or more attempts on her end, you know, for like I don't know, like maybe one-on-one time or like getting together a little bit more. And I don't feel like toward the end, obviously, you know, like younger years, like this kind of thing. Um, but overall, I feel like there's just such a gratefulness and a love and a thankfulness just for being a part of her life. Like I feel like I could almost be in tears right now because she just wants to express like how much you just mean to her. Um, the world. You just mean the world to her. And you'll always be her pretty ballerina. So I don't know if you were a dancer, but
Yeah.
I want to kind of reference that. Um, and just leave her love. Like there's just such an immense amount of love. And yeah, she'll be back. She's coming back. She'll be coming back. She'll be
Oh,
a regular.
oh, that's really beautiful, Adrian.
Thank you.
That's my mother who passed away on May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. As her nod to Mexico. That's what I think. Um, and everything you said, wow, really fit. Like the reason she probably talked about the kitchen is because there was one in her condo. There was a, you know, the main room that had, it was like an open format with a,
Mhm.
you know, dining table, and then the sitting area with sofas and a, TV area, and then the kitchen was right there. And she actually, and then big sliding all glass on one side that looked out onto a marina, which went out into the ocean. And,
Okay.
um, and so she's talking about the kitchen a lot because, she was right there because that's really where she spent, like all day, hours just, because she wasn't going out a whole lot, but I mean, we would go out. And let me see some other Puerto Vallarta. Wow, you even got the name of the city. That's pretty amazing.
Oh,
Is that where
oh
Yeah,
she
wow.
was, Tammy? Puerto
yeah,
Vallarta. Okay.
yes,
All right.
Puerto
Wow.
Vallarta. Yep,
Oh,
yep. And I think you said it was interesting because you said I like I'm feeling in my heart, but then I'm also feeling this heaviness. So I'm thinking, she has a heavy heart because I think there
Oh,
are things that maybe now she's thinking, oh darn, like why didn't I
mhm.
say that or do that or um, and boy, I totally get that about her body like not working because I knew that. I mean, we all knew that, but it was really interesting to hear from her point of view what it was feeling like. That was
Mhm.
wild. And also the confusion and the in and out like that because she was like that. And so to hear her take on what that was like and how she'd start to say something and then kind of forget what she was going to say is it's really interesting to hear from somebody like that's just pretty amazing to be able to do that, to understand from their point of view only after they've passed, right? Um, and what else did I want to say about that? I did take ballet, yeah, for like 8 years. And I love to dance, so it's probably that. And um, the last thing I want to say is it's so funny because I talked to her so much about our group, and she'd always just kind of not get it. Like, what is that thing again? Mediumship. I don't understand what that is. And I even showed her like the squares. I said, see, this is what it looks like. So I find it really fun that she's like, now I could say, do you see what I mean?
I think
See?
she does. I think she does.
You're here now. How wild is that? So thank you so much.
Thank
She's been
you.
coming through a lot, like in the last
Oh,
week, because I was at a retreat and she was there a lot. So,
I'm very sorry about her passing, by the
oh,
way.
thank you. No, I think she's wonderful, full life. She felt blessed, and she was ready, it's time to go. And so
Yeah.
she seems to be having much more fun there, so good. It's all good.
oh my
All
gosh.
good.
Well,
Yeah.
so I want to throw something out to both of you, okay? But I'm going to start with Adrienne first, okay? Because Tammy did mention here that her mom passed on Cinco de Mayo, and it's May 31st today, okay? So she's been on the other side for a little over 3 weeks at this point. And so I wanted to ask both of you, like, have you heard this like general rule, so to speak, that you can't contact somebody on the other side unless they've been there for at least, and like the period I hear is at least 6 months. Sometimes I hear a year. Okay. And so I wanted to get both of your thoughts on, is there a waiting period before you can communicate with people? What do you think, Adrian? What's been your experience?
Well, I mean, I hear all kinds of things as far as mediumship goes, like, rules. But
Yeah.
as far as doing mediumship and everything I have found in it, there is no rules. There is no set in stone anything. I think spirit is wise and they have a mind of their own and like they know what's going on. So I think we just are the messengers and, we're just here to be that open vessel of communication. And so, yeah, I think the more open you are to it, like, you'll be surprised, you know?
What do you mean? You meaning the spirit? The more open they
Yeah.
are to it, okay. That
Well, in the medium, because I think as a medium, if you really believe like there's a set of rules you have to follow, then your beliefs are of course going to make your own reality, and like that's what's going to happen for you. But I think if you kind of just trust spirit and trust what you're getting, then you'll find like, or at least I have found, there's really no set of rules. Like spirit's their own mind. They do what they want.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
what do you think about it, Tammy?
Well, Adrian, I think I love your point about we create our own reality. So if you've put that limitation on yourself, then, well, yeah, that's going to happen. I, the certification I did, we were told it was suggested to wait 3 months. But the reason why is it had to do with, and I've forgotten the person's name who developed those different stages of grieving, and it has to do with those grieving stages. So that
The sitters where they're at mentally is what you're saying.
exactly,
Okay.
because it's really more for that, and that, or that's just, this is where I came from with my training, because it's really more for the sitter, that they've gone through a certain stage of grieving before they have the reading, because they just feel that that's important for them. And
Mm.
um, but I agree that, we've had them come through like the same day. I
Mhm.
just think, I don't know, are they having parties and so like they can't get to it yet, or are they being shown? I keep thinking they're being shown like they are brought to like portals or something, and so they just have to make their way to it. And I don't, it's just also curious to how it works. Adrian, I did want to also, I forgot to say the L sound. You were like Lillian, or her middle name is
Mhm.
Alice. Alice. So
Mm.
it's a strong
Okay.
L. Alice.
Okay.
Alice. So I think that's
Okay.
where that was coming from. And also, actually, oh, I know. She may have also been referring to my dog, and she loved my dog, who was Lily.
Oh,
So
okay.
she may have also been mentioning Lily. So,
Sweet. All
Thank
right.
you.
I want to go back and address this point about like the quote waiting period for
mhm,
contact, okay? Because in my experience, um, I've had spirits come in before they're even buried.
mhm,
Okay, they have come in that quickly. Okay. And other times, I've looked for them and because I have someone who is specifically asked, okay, to see somebody and they just are not ready to come yet. And it kind of reminds me, if both of you have seen the movie Beetlejuice, okay, where in Beetlejuice they talk about the handbook of the recently deceased. Okay. And I know that's a joke, okay, but I
yeah.
think there's some element of truth to that on the other side. Like once they get up there, okay, it's funny because some of them like don't miss a beat. Okay. And other ones, like the one that really makes me laugh is like I was speaking with a spirit and he kept on telling me to give the phone to his daughter, give the phone to his daughter because he didn't like me being in the middle of their conversation. Okay.
Mhm.
And and I was trying to figure this out and I said to the sitter, I said, is your dad like technologically challenged? Okay. And she laughed, okay, because he just couldn't get technology and he thought this was some weird technology that we're using and he was trying to cut me out of it and I had to go, no, that's not the way it works.
That's really
you
funny.
know yeah, but it is kind of interesting and I think for the benefit of our YouTube audience, like if you have somebody that you've lost, I don't believe, and I think we're all in agreement on that there is a quote waiting period where that spirit will not come in. But like how soon they adjust to the idea of being on the other side may affect how soon they come in. Okay. And in Tammy's case, okay, Tammy was talking about her mom, and Tammy had talked to her mom over and over again about mediumship. Well, her mom, was mentally impaired at that point, but obviously some of it sunk in because there she is. Okay, and talking to Tammy like a pro here.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm so impressed with
you know,
her and with you, Adrian, the two of
yeah,
you.
yeah,
Yeah. And actually after 2 weeks was probably the first time she came in, or maybe 10 days. And, and I told her, I said, we'll be able to still keep in touch a lot. And so it's like, yeah, I feel like, maybe we're talking even better now.
that
So,
that's so beautiful. Okay, all right. So YouTube audience, don't give up. Okay, all right. Just your spirit may require some time, but they're definitely there.
well, yes. And also remember we had into our normal circle, we had a guest whose brother hadn't come through for 20 years and he came through in our circle. So it can go
Okay,
from, it
yeah,
can go from, the
yeah,
afternoon they passed to he waited 20 years to come in.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
you just don't know. He wasn't ready.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's an interesting comment too, because I had one where and it was a sad situation because it was a young girl who had gotten into drugs and her father was there and she would not come forward because she was so ashamed
Okay.
because her father had told her not to do it. And and I could see her out there and I kept on begging her, you know he's here, obviously he's here because he loves you. Okay. And but by the same token, he was still so angry with her at that point in time that
Mhm.
she would not come forward and directly talk to him. She let her presence be known, but she wouldn't talk to him. So
May
and
I add
and
one more thought?
yeah, by all
Sorry.
means.
Well, the other thought I kind of wonder too, because I do feel like spirit's all wise and all knowing, and I just always trust in that with my readings, is like maybe there is always bigger pictures. Like maybe the sitter, for example, might really feel like they're ready, but maybe they're not, maybe they're not always ready for that message and that connection. So I just feel like there's always reasons for it. And maybe it's the spirit, maybe it's the sitter. I mean, who knows? Maybe it's a combination, but when it's meant to happen, it does. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Wow. Well,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Tammy, you said your guy would wait.
Well,
Is
let me just check. Let me just look back and see
is your guy
he's
still
still
there? I
here.
hope.
He's still here. Yeah,
Yay. Okay.
he's
Thank
like,
you for waiting
yeah,
so
he's
patiently.
like, he must be in the green room with my mom, before they come on. I don't know. Um, okay, so this man is lots of fun, and he's like tapping like like people do when they're like kind of drumming along, kind of, having a good time. The first thing he showed me though was really, I was like, what is this? He was showing me two dice. Okay. And I was like, ooh, what are you going to do with that? Like, are we playing a game or what are we doing? And then he suddenly turned it and he showed me the number 5. And so I'm wondering, and then that's where I left off. And then, so now I'll go back okay. I'm, I believe I'm hearing that the name Rodney would be significant around him. And I want to understand what this number 5 is. And I do believe that he's saying that he was a family of 5. Rodney could also be a place. Um, is there like a Rodney, New York? Uh, okay, let me just get a little bit more uh, with him. He's talking something about like turnkey turnstiles. That's just such a non sequitur from um, what this is all, how this is all, how he's presenting things. Okay, he's now telling to me that he felt like he was, um, oh gosh, how would I call it? Like chained to his work, but it wasn't something that he wanted he didn't want it to be that way because he's literally showing me a handcuff around a briefcase. And so I'm feeling like he feels that he was like chained to his work. And he's saying that he was like a professional, but it wasn't like, a professional, he was like a mid-level kind of professional. Um, Possibly even sold insurance, something like this. And oh, let me just place him for you where he would be. He's not a direct family relative. So he looks like he would either be like a cousin. He could either be a cousin, he could be a friend. He feels um, a little bit, further out. He's definitely further out. He could be an uncle. He could be an uncle, a friend of the family, that kind of relationship. So, which one of you are understanding him
I
so
am
far?
listening to this.
Okay, so I want to go back, of course, to the Rodney part. So, is that making uh, resonating with you at all?
Both the Rodney and the New York go together and they make sense.
Okay, that's what it's like. Rodney, New York. So I don't
Mhm.
know whether it's
Rodney, New
Rodney,
York
comma, New
makes sense.
York. It's
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, interesting. Okay, so would you understand? Um, okay, thank you. He's also. I wanted to ask you, do you understand the dice? But he's also showing me that he did play games that would include dice, but that is so interesting because the number five is very significant. Would you understand that number five?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't. I'm trying to figure out what five is. So
Okay. Okay. Did you know his family? Would he have five in the family?
he was a business associate, so I don't know a
We don't
lot
know.
about his family. Okay.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Let me go back to him and let him keep talking. Um, He's saying that sometimes he traveled, and but most of the time he stayed put. And I do feel that that had to do with his work. And so most of the time he was there, but would you understand that sometimes he's having to travel? He's like, I don't know,
Yes.
far
Oh
away,
yeah,
but yeah, okay.
very much.
He's talking about walking on sidewalks and kind of, like hitting the pavement. I'm hitting the pavement
Hmm.
and talking to people, trying to make them understand. What are we trying to make them understand? Okay, so he's got a little bit of a sense of humor because he's saying, trying to make them understand how valuable it is for them to have what I'm trying to basically sell them. And so, or, whether it's a thing, but kind of, what either his idea or whatever he's peddling that
Right.
he wants them to, but he's saying it in such a way as, um, kind of peddling, like peddling what, okay, well, I can't quite get how he was uh, doing that before, but um, so he's talking about that that wasn't that wasn't really part of the job that he liked so much because he didn't really enjoy so much being in kind of towns or cities that were on his own, that it was kind of lonely actually, and that he
Oh yeah.
actually he actually enjoyed much more like being in the like home office is what the name he just gave me, home office,
Uh-huh.
being in the home office because he liked the camaraderie that was there
Hmm.
and kind of the joking around and so he's also saying that he's talking about, yeah, and I hated packing, I hated kind of, schlepping stuff around. He's just, and he's saying I'm more of a stay at home kind of a guy, and saying that he actually really preferred more like he liked routine and Yeah. And just he let's see, how am I doing for my time? Yeah, it's a kind of, preferred routine. And um he also shows me that he would have been um someone who this is funny what he's showing me. um he seems to kind of, I think I just have to describe the scene because I can't quite describe the personality with it, but he would be the one. Imagine if you're standing in a bar and there's like a sports game on, and he's standing there like holding a beer or whatever, and he's the one that like like puts his hand in the air like, "Woo, yeah, go, man, go." So he's the one shouting out. Everybody else might be quiet, but he's the one like,
Yeah.
he'd be shouting like at the TV, at the sports team.
Right.
So you
Mhm.
understand that?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. See, it was easier to just give you what he's describing to me. Um, um, let's see, and then remorse. Okay, the word he just gave me, remorse. He started to try to show me something, and the way he was trying to show it to me was like walking down a street by himself with his head down, and with you only see his back. Um, but then I heard the word remorse, and then remorseful,
Hmm.
because of things I did and things I didn't do.
Oh,
And then he's saying, sadly, if I had it to do over, I feel like I got this exact same line from somebody another time. If I had it to do over, I would do the same thing again. Yeah, because you can really only make the just your best decision in that moment, and you work with where you are in that moment of time, and you do the best, or he's saying, or the worst that you can. And so he's saying, so I just want to leave you with that there's some remorse, and the last bit of what I'll say is that, but it seems like he's much better now. Like he's not feeling like, I mean, he feels remorseful for some things that happened here, but I'm feeling much lighter with him where he is now. So I'm feeling like he's, there's something that he understands better now where he is, and has come to terms with things, and feels better now. And he feels kind of light, and he's telling me I can be a good friend.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. He's saying I can be a good friend.
Yes.
And so I'll leave you with that, with him.
Ah, well, that
Yeah.
was fascinating, Tammy. Thank you. So, this was a former business associate of mine. We were in insurance.
Oh,
Okay. All right. But he
okay.
was based in New York, and he literally had to travel all across the United States to talk to different agents. Okay. So that was the travel portion of this. But what pinned it down for me, okay, was the fact that you talked about Rodney's, okay, because he had the like this secret dream he wanted to be an amateur a comedian. Okay. And at the time, and I have to clarify, this goes way back. Okay. This is 40 years ago. At the time, there was a famous comedy club in New York that Rodney Dangerfield had set up, and it was called Rodney's.
Oh
Okay.
my
And I
God.
don't even know if it's still there.
Oh
Okay. But that was his dream, his kind of like obsession to get on stage at Rodney's. Okay. Because it was like this hot place. Okay. And eventually, and like the whole personality was, very much him. He was just a good, solid guy, but he got a little, he had a baby. Okay. His wife had just given birth, and he got a little bit discontent at work, and he decided to write a letter to his bosses. Okay. And say everything that he felt about how they were running the company wrong. Okay.
Okay.
And so he showed it to his secretary, and his secretary said, "That's nice. That's good. You got it off your chest. Now rip that up." Okay.
Okay.
And as part of his record, he said, his rant, he said, "If you don't remedy these things, I'm going to resign." Okay. All right. And what happened was is they wrote him back and said, "Your resignation is accepted." So here,
Oh, I didn't know that was this guy. I remember you saying that to somebody else when they brought this guy through. I
yes,
didn't realize it
okay.
was
And
that guy.
yes, okay. And so what happened, was is they just said, "Okay, fine, okay." And here he is, and he's got a new baby and no job,
Oh
and so
gosh.
I understand the remorse, and all that stuff, and but wow, that's just kind of fascinating, that he would come in and actually, so let's have a discussion about this too, because this is a good talking point for our YouTube audience here. So here's this man. First of all, who's not a family, a member of mine, not even a close friend. Okay. This was somebody that I worked with in a business capacity back in the 80s. Okay. Why do you think, and let's start with Tammy, why would this man come into me? Why and talk to me? Why do you think um he would bother, I guess is my question.
I feel that they, I feel that they work hard to work with us, that I feel that it has to do with like supporting us and supporting this vocation, and that they might not necessarily have a whole lot they need or want to say right then, but that maybe it's supportive and maybe they enjoy it. And whereas then other people who have passed, other, spirits have a need to come through. I feel like there's like this span kind of intelligence, and that they come through for different reasons, but you and at different times come in for different reasons, because there can be someone who comes through with this heartfelt, message, and that same person, 2 weeks later could come through with totally different information and almost another side of them, because, humans are complicated. And so, I mean, today I kind of felt like, oh, I felt like he was stopping in because he enjoyed it. It's funny. That's the feeling I got.
He
You know,
enjoyed being in this environment, you
like
think?
the circle, like that he came in because,
Well, that's cool.
or do they even have organizers, that say, you know, do they organize ahead of time and say, who's coming today or coming through, or, that they heard about it and I want to do it, or, I mean, and then there are other demonstrations where, they can't get a word in because they all are there because there are so many people, and, they're in that audience, and they want to get in and talk. And so, um,
Hmm.
because it was very different, like bringing him in for you, then Adrian, you bringing my mother in,
Right.
really wants this connection, and is really, I think, understanding now. Wow, like you really can do this. Like you really can talk, and how much she's um, enjoying it and wants to connect on a more emotional level with me, you know. So
Yeah.
I feel
You're
like,
bringing up a good point there. Okay, because in the case of Tammy's mom, that reading was very heartfelt,
yeah,
and in the case of this one, it was more like a casual acquaintance, passing you on the street, which would make perfect sense because that's who that man was. He was, a casual acquaintance. So, what's your take
it,
on it, Adrian? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I agree with like everything Tammy's saying too.
Mhm.
Um, I guess my only other thought on that would be, like kind of as a whole, we are all kind of interconnected, whether that's in a big way or a small way. So I think to me that kind of just shows, even on the spirit realm, like how connected all of us are, really. And so, yeah, I think we make impacts every day, whether we realize that or not. And sometimes it is just like a hello to somebody, and I think that's a good way to show like the interconnectedness with people in the spirit.
can
Okay.
I just add something
Yeah,
after Adrian said that?
sure.
Because of you, I just want to speak to what you're saying about us feeling all because of the interconnectedness. And it's very interesting you say that, because as I was talking about his travel,
Mhm.
I had a different understanding of my husband and his travel. So it was like,
What do you
oh,
mean? What do you
like
mean?
it made me think, I try not to say too much because then, my husband may want to use this when he comes into readings for you all, so I'm trying to be a little circumspect, but
Uh,
it made me, because of that interconnection that Adrian's talking about, as I was describing how he felt when he traveled, like it was a
yeah,
little lonely,
yeah,
I thought, oh my gosh, he could be describing my husband. And so there was that feeling of connectedness, because I'm understanding this on a real level, and a better, a stronger level, because of the way he's bringing it to me, which I didn't understand when my husband was living, if that makes sense.
yeah. Okay, that makes perfect sense. All right, and then for the benefit of our YouTube audience, okay, there you have a demonstration of why, if you're going to a medium, you need to expect more than just your family to come in, okay? Um, because literally everyone that you've crossed paths with over the course of your life will potentially come into this environment to talk to you, okay? So kind of broaden your horizons and see if you can make sense of what that medium is telling you.
That's such a
Or-
good point, Carol.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, all right. Let me see if I can grab a spirit here. And mm, oy. All right. As I look out there into this spirit world, I'm becoming aware of a male. Male. He feels grandfatherly to me, the word that I want to say. This is bizarre, but I'm going to say it. I feel like he tapped maple syrup. Actually tapped the trees, boiled the syrup, and made his own maple syrup. So let me see if I can figure out anything more about him. Although the one other thing I want to say about him is I don't think he's a quote farmer per se. Okay, I feel like this might have been just something that was done on a very small scale in his life. So I'm going to stop. Ask, is any of that resonating with anybody? Somebody who makes maple syrup? Not yet? Okay. Let me see if I can see something else about him. Mhm. Man lives in a northern climate because at one point he had a snowmobile and he would use the snowmobile to go out into the woods, okay, to like what is this? Like a cabin sitting out in the middle of the woods. Okay. So he would travel out there to go to this cabin in the snow. Hmm. And I'm also going to say that I feel like when he was young, he hunted a lot, but he kind of gravitated away from that as he became older, because it was just too physically demanding for him. So is any of that resonating with anyone? No? All right. I'm going to try for one more piece of information, and if not, I'm going to let him go. Uh, Getting a J name with him. J name. Okay, and I don't feel like this guy's family. Okay, and just for the benefit of our YouTube audience, these readings are more difficult to place because then you have to look outside of your normal thought process and to place it. I feel like this man you would have known through another man. Okay, so there's a male in between the two of you. Any of that making sense?
It's so
No.
funny. I feel like I should know somebody like this because I'm used to be in the winter in an area where you would have been able to do that, but I
Right. Well, let me
can't
keep
place it.
running with him and see. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out the connection with the closer male. So, you have this male, and then this male with the maple syrup is more closely associated with the male than he is with you. Uh, I'm feeling like a low level politics with him, something like something along the lines of like a local sheriff or like a small town mayor, but real small. Okay. But there's some connection to political appointments.
Oh, okay. So I know I can think of somebody who was a like sheriff in a small town and with a J name, but he's living.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, yeah. That's why
Okay.
I'm like, I feel like I should know this it's funny.
Okay. All right. Okay. So for the benefit of our YouTube audience, when this happens, all right, what this means is that there's somebody in spirit who is talking about this individual, and then we have to kind of puzzle out who the person is who's talking about this man and why they're talking about them. Okay. So let's run with the sheriff. Is there a man between you and
Yes, that
this
would make
sheriff?
sense. That would make sense.
Okay, all right. Now
Yep.
is the man who's between you, is he in spirit?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So I feel like this is the man who's between you who is talking about the sheriff. Let's see what he's got to say. Hmm. He's saying that there's more to the sheriff than meets the eye. Would that make sense to you?
Um,
That's kind of an open-ended question. I'm going to go
Yeah,
back and
I'm not sure. Yeah.
okay, all right. I'm gonna lean into that a little bit.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I understand maybe what he's saying. Yeah, maybe, yeah.
He's he says that the sheriff knows where all the bodies are buried. Okay, and I don't think he means literally bodies, but I think he is saying that the sheriff is aware of some things that were done that perhaps that were not quite right. Okay, that
I think I understand what he's trying to, in an amusing way, convey.
I'm dying to hear the feedback on this. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. See what else he wants to say. Now all of a sudden I'm feeling chest pains and I'm trying to figure out if this is I feel like the chest pains are associated with the sheriff. Would you know?
Um, I'm thinking more with the person in spirit.
More with the person in spirit. Okay,
But
because it's
the person who, the sheriff, that I'm not sure of. I could
okay. All right. Yeah, because I'm feeling these chest pains all of a sudden. Let's see what else he wants to
I can
say.
check that. Yeah.
This is taking on a lot of weird imagery, but I'm going to run with it. So, what he's showing me now, what Spirit is showing me now, are trapping lines. Okay. The people would use to trap animals. Was there animal trapping going on in this area that you know of?
No, but it may be symbolic.
And that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it
Yeah.
is symbolic. So let me lean into it. Well, so spirits talking about getting your gonads caught in a trap. Okay. But
Uh,
those are not quite the words that he used. Okay. All right. And let's see where he goes with that. And he's laughing that he got me to say that too. So he's playing with me, which is pretty funny. Um, yeah, but he's talking about um, the gist of this is that the sheriff, whoever he is not necessarily an above the board person, okay, and has effectively, I'm going to go back to the traps, okay, so he's trapped people, okay, and um, possibly done some things that were not quite above the board, okay, um, and so spirit is telling you to make sure that you stay away from this sheriff for what it's worth. Okay. And then I'm going to leave you that with light and love. And thank you for letting me serve spirit. And okay. So tell me what that was all about, Tammy.
Well, I think the person in between was my husband,
Okay. All
I
right.
think, and his cousin Jim was a sheriff in, like, I think it was called Milligan, Colorado or something. And then he became the marijuana, like, sheriff. And I can't remember if it was specifically before it was legal. It must have been maybe before it was legal or something. And he had a badge actually that he showed us all that said like something of marijuana, like investigation or whatever, I can't remember exactly what it was. So um,
Huh.
that's why I'm thinking, he would know where the bodies are buried, kind of like, because that's kind of like he would know like undercover stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
or um, the chest pains. I don't, I'm going to check actually to make sure that
Hmm.
he's, everything's okay. Because this is what's so interesting actually too, is that Eileen Davies brought my husband through in a demonstration at the retreat I was just at. And she said he really does want to prove to you, like as though he would have to, that this is him, this is he, and it's like, okay, well, I'm a medium, so I'm going to believe that. But she mentioned the name Jim. And she said, he's talking about Jim and you're talking about Jim.
Here's Jim back.
And
Huh.
so and I think, so I need to check in and find out what's going on with Jim, because now now he's bringing it in again, you know, and, oh, and then to go back to the trapping lines. So I wonder I mean, he's a good guy, but like, it was
But if
that
he's
bad
catching criminals, it would make sense that he'd set traps.
trapping. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I think it must have been before it was legal. I'm thinking,
Would have had to have been, yeah, if it's decriminalized in Colorado, you know,
yeah, because I'm trying
the
to think of when
sentence.
that was. And I think I'm thinking about the age of my son at that time, and he was pretty young. So that had to be quite a while ago, So I think I don't remember how long marijuana's been legal. I think it's legal in Colorado too, I think. But
Okay.
I guess all of this has only been legal in the last, what,
Mhm.
7 years maybe?
Yeah, fairly recent. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty recent. So yeah, so so it all fits him,
That,
except for, I don't know if I always thought of him as being just this really good guy, but yeah, maybe there's some stuff I don't know. I don't know.
I think you have to bend the rules a little bit to do that job well, so
Yeah,
God
you
bless them
probably
for
do.
doing that job well.
You
So,
probably do. You probably
yeah.
do. But I am definitely going to check in now and find out what's going on with him and I'm wondering if you're the one that's helping, like, me believe, as though I had to, that, my husband was there, at that demonstration, um,
Okay.
because of you then bringing through Jim. Like, is that what he was trying to do to show me, like, watch, I'm going to have somebody else now talk about Jim. I don't know. So
Well, so this is an interesting point too, and let's talk about this, okay? Because I think we've all been in this situation where we've received information and readings, and it's like one of these things that could be true, but you don't know it to be true, and you have to go back and you verify it.
that's
Okay.
right.
What are your thoughts on that kind of information? And let's start with Tammy on that. Okay. So
I think
you're
it's
talking about having to go back and verify this. So what do you think it means if you go back and you find out this is true? What does that mean to you?
Well, I know. Well, then, of course, that doesn't mean that it was somehow in your consciousness. It wasn't happening psychically. It wasn't in my consciousness because I
Because you didn't know it.
don't know of it. Yeah, I don't
Right,
know
right,
it.
right.
Whereas sometimes, depending on what people believe, you can be reading their aura, you can be reading them psychically. How all of that happens. There are so many different theories, but um, this way you really couldn't really be reading those things because you don't know yourself. You don't, the sitter doesn't know, the medium's giving information, the sitter actually can't verify. And when they find out, well, that's pretty good evidence, you
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
It means
Yeah,
it must be coming from somewhere else because the sitter is unaware of it in their consciousness. So
yeah. What about you, Adrian? What do you've had that experience?
I kind of get my button to unmute. Yeah, I mean, I totally believe the same thing as Tammy. Like, if it's something you don't really consciously know and then you can verify it later, like to me, that's just proof of like spirit knowing. Like that's like the strongest evidence to me that you can get. Like, yeah, that's really real, because they are saying something like you don't even have knowledge of. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
good
Okay.
verification.
And I'm kind of on board with that too. I know the very like first reading that I ever had, the medium told me that my father, who died in 1980, okay, the medium told me that my father was pointing to a package of Salem Light cigarettes and saying, "These are what killed me."
Oh,
Okay. And of course, because it went back to 1980, I couldn't remember what kind of cigarettes you know, my father had smoked. But my brother is autistic and he has that memory like the Rain Man. Okay. And he knows all this stuff. Okay. So I went and asked him, I said, what kind of cigarettes did dad smoke? Didn't tell him why I wanted to know, but right off he pops out Salem Lights. Okay. And there you go, and it was kind of interesting because like in my experience, I get probably half or about half of the information that I get in a reading makes sense to me during the reading, and the other half doesn't make sense till I'm at the door. you know, and that's the way that it generally works with me. Okay, really have to think about what spirit is telling me. But what do you guys think about it? What do you think?
about which
About recognizing information after the fact?
well, yeah, like much what I said. I mean, you just that it's really a beautiful thing. It's like seeing the magic. Then it's like that kind of th- that's the realization of the magic because then it's like, wow, it's um yeah, it's like when they predict. Sometimes I've had spirits come in for a client and they'll show me something that my client is going to see. And that's kind of a very similar thing because, they haven't seen it yet.
Mhm.
And then, a few days later, they see it. One was actually sitting right on her desk, it was like a cup with pansies on it. And he had shown me that she will see a cup with pansies and predominantly, and yellow will be very a strong color in that. And 2 days later, for like nurses appreciation, day or whatever, on her desk sat a mug with the pansies and you have to love it. It's that magic that just,
How could you know? How could you know? That's neat.
yeah, no,
Um,
it's the best.
you
So I
had weird experiences like that, Adrian? What was your most
Oh yeah,
jarring?
definitely. Um, and I would say that too. I'm trying to think of my most jarring, like nothing's coming to my mind on the spot, but like I know there's definitely been instances where I'm like, okay, wait a second. And this is another lesson I think throughout kind of for like setters too, because there's a lot of times like when you're getting a reading in the moment, you're like, oh no, I don't recognize that. So like I'm just gonna say no. But then you go and you find out later, like, oh wait, that was a yes, or like, oh, it clicks in your head, like that's what they were talking about. So not everything is always gonna make perfect sense during a reading. So, just to kind of throw it out there, like I think it's good to kind of going with like an open mind as a sitter because sometimes even those no's can end up being yeses. um, but yeah, there's definitely been moments in time where I've had readings and I'm like, I don't think that makes sense, and then I'll go back later and I'm like, oh my god, that does make sense. So yeah, that happens all the time.
Yeah, yeah. And that's why, if you're getting a reading, sometimes it's helpful to either record the reading if the medium will permit you to do that, or jot down notes. Okay.
Mhm.
Because sometimes you even have to take it as far as showing the information to another family member because, let's say that the spirit's talking about somebody who might be a grandparent. Well, you might not be the best person to know something about a grandparent. Your own parent may be more qualified to, give you a yes or no on certain information. But as Tammy points out, it is so powerful to go back after the fact and learn that something you didn't know and you had never heard about was absolutely true. And so if you don't know it yourself, medium sure as heck doesn't know it, you know, where did that information come from? And that's what makes it, as Tammy said, magic. So
Yeah, and I'll definitely get back to you, Carol, about
yeah,
that.
okay, thank you,
'Cause now
Tammy. I appreciate
his
it.
name, like his name has come up, so it's like something's
Yeah, okay,
you
and
know,
Jim's here.
something's going on with Jim. I can't
Okay,
work it
all
out.
right, interesting. Uh, all right, any parting comments before we close down here, ladies?
Don't think so. This
No?
was a pleasure. It
I
was
think
a
it was,
pleasure to be together.
yes,
Yeah,
and fascinating. I love the conversation around stuff, and
yeah,
there's so much we just are always learning as mediums. It's ever evolving. So the conversations are just so great, in my opinion.
yeah, I agree with you. So,
Yeah.
with that thought, let's close and say thank you to Spirit. Okay. Holy Father, Mother God, thank you for allowing us to come together today in service of Spirit. Thank you for the gift of mediumship that you've given us, and allow us to use this precious gift to help others who need your healing and love. Bless all of our friends and loved ones and protect them from sickness and harm. Bring joy into the lives of people who have sorrow, health into the lives of people who have illness, and abundance to the lives of people who have little. Thank you for the lessons that you've given us today, and help us to continue to build a relationship with you that is based on love and trust. And always, please help us to be the lights that change this world for the better. Amen. All right. Thank you, YouTube audience. Okay, we'll be back online same time next week. Hope to see you then.